hot topics, and we always encourage people to let us know what you're interested in. We have we are based on lots of volunteer work. We have a lot of people that are helping our organization as a nonprofit, and Florian is our chair for the media and entertainment group and put this event together tonight. So special thanks to Florian for tonight, and I would also like to give a special thanks to Thomas for this lovely space. He's hosting us tonight here, and we're very grateful for him to host us here tonight. And well, now I'm going to give it to Florian.
Thank you.
Give us
Thank you everybody for coming. Thank you for the panelists to take the time. And I know some of you guys changed your planes and travel arrangements to be able to come here. And I want to say 2 words why we put this together. I have been working with GABA for many years as co-chair for the media and entertainment group, and mobile payment has become a really hot topic. That many people are interested in mobile payment, mobile offers. And I tried to put together a panel that is highly diverse and including experts from the payment space, from the offer space, from the mobile secure transaction space. Yeah? And we even have somebody here from a design firm, and somebody asked me earlier, why a design firm? And I'm sure Jason will be able to answer this in more detail. But one thing that we learned is it's not just saying, okay, it's like always, only more. Now we have one more way. No, mobile payment will completely change the way we interact in the retail space and the online space. And the ability to have a designer here, somebody who understands interaction design, somebody who understands how to people interact with each other, with environments, with technology, I think will be very helpful to answer many of the questions. With this, I would like to ask Tom to get started and have the people probably best introduce themselves. Thank you.
Great. Well, first of all, I'd like to welcome you all to what we hope is going to be a very thrilling discussion around the topic of mobile offers and mobile payments. Format for the presentation tonight is I'd like to take a few minutes just to allow each of the panelists to introduce themselves. We'll have a moderated discussion until 8 p.m., followed by question and answer until 8:30, which I'm sure is going to be great given the fact that we have so many leaders in the payment space in the audience tonight. And then promptly at 8:30, we will return to the networking portion of this evening's program. So starting with the panelist introductions.
Okay. My name is Yuri Drost. I'm a Chief Technology Officer of a startup company in Silicon Valley called Envision. We are working in mobile transactions. Specifically, we are mostly interested in implementing mobile interaction between mobile devices and traditional point-of-sale systems. This has been a very hard problem to crack for a number of reasons that I'm sure we'll discuss later. I've been in mobile transaction space for almost 5 years now, working on different projects, including a company called Symbol, which launched a P2P mobile payment solution, which is currently in the market. And on this panel, mostly to discuss mobile transactions as related to the physical stores, physical situations.
My name is Kolja Reiss. I'm the Managing Director for MoPay North America. MoPay is we believe to be the world's largest carrier-based biller. What does that mean? We allow particularly online merchants, to place charges to cell phone bills. So imagine you're in your situation, say any online merchant that you have shopped with, say Amazon as an example. You fill your shopping cart and you go through the checkout process, and at some point a painful moment comes, you have to pay. And you're being presented with often a variety of payment options at the end. That's what we refer to as the payment wall. In the US, you would probably pick credit card. because credit card adoption is high. It's credit card penetration in North America is, compared to the rest of the world, very high. So you would probably pick credit card. In other regions of the world, you would pick bank transfer options, you would pick PayPal or whatever. Another option that you can pick with MoPay or one of MoPay's competitors is pay with your cell phone bill. So you click pay by mobile, you type in your cell phone number, we run you through an authorization process, we send you a one-time transactional PIN to your phone, you type that PIN back in the online interface, and the checkout is complete. The product is delivered to your, whatever you say, it's a digital product, it's being delivered to your computer, and the charge appears on your cell phone bill at the end of the month and is being settled along with your voice and data charges. If you have a prepaid phone, it's being deducted from your prepaid balance. So that's in a nutshell our business model. It's incredibly simple. We have contracted with 380 carriers globally. The product is currently live in 80 countries. The company has been around for 12 years. We are cash flow positive, and we have about 200 people in 7 offices globally. And our major merchant, we have about 550 merchants on the platform right now. And our major merchants are merchants from the virtual and digital goods space.
Okay, will I go? So I guess I'm one of the diverse participants in the on the panel. My name's Peter Baldwin. Just a bit about myself. I've been in mobile enabling technologies for over 25 years. Started out of college at a company called Scion, which became Symbian, which is a former OS. Done startups, many startups, and sold them, including one that's the reason I'm in the US. And more recently, I joined a company called Smaato. I run the Americas operations for Smaato. The reason I really like Smaato is it's in the mobile monetization space. It's a very rapidly growing mobile advertising space. Smaato is a German company headquartered over here, some 100 people, 25 in this office, 20 in Singapore, and then the balance around the world, but the majority are in Hamburg. We have 55,000 app developers that have signed up and use our system. We have over 1 billion impressions a day that go through our system. So the reason that I believe we've been invited, and certainly I'd like to talk about, is around mobile offers. Because part of the mobile marketing experience is you create some mobile propositions and mobile experiences for a consumer, and some of those are, how do I actually get people with an offer, and that's part of the sort of mobile advertising experience.
My name is Jason Neal. I am with Method. I am the black sheep, which was referred to earlier. We are a design and innovation consultancy. We're based here in San Francisco and have offices also in New York and London. We've done work in the mobile payment space. We also do a lot of work in the retail space, which obviously is heavily impacted by what's happening in mobile payments and the revolution that is. We do a lot of work with everyone from Google and Microsoft and LG and Samsung and HTC, Williams-Sonoma, Nissan, Time Warner, Comcast, and we also do a lot of work with startups too. Why is it interesting? Why is design interesting in this space? I think it's because we were invited not just because of my good looks, but because this is a different paradigm, as Florian talked a little bit about. Yes, it is payment, but it's take the web and mobile. It's not like it wasn't like you took a smartphone and just put the web on it. It's a different user experience. It's a different interface. People use it in a fundamentally different way. The same thing is true of what mobile payment tomorrow will be to swiping a credit card today. And so looking at not only the actual interface of a product, so Square is well known because it's a first mover in the space. It's also extremely well designed. Jack, founded that company, is well known as a design enthusiast and comes from a design background. But it's also about the customer journey and the service experience overall and what that means. And you know, as designers, we look not only at you know, the UI of a particular digital product, but also, you know, what does the customer journey look like, and how do you create frictionless experiences for the end user, and that ultimately is going to make a big difference in terms of, you know, who succeeds and who doesn't succeed, and you know what ultimately mobile payment, however you define that, looks like. So that's what I do.
And I'm Tom Gump. I'm a partner in the corporate and finance practice here at Pillsbury. I spent the last 10 years or so working with the firm's payments clients. I've done joint ventures in the internet payment space, electronic bill payment and presentment, online payroll, ACH. I've represented private equity funds doing acquisitions of money services businesses and startups in connection with their state licensing obligations. And most recently, I had the chance to work with Wells Fargo on the formation of the Clear Exchange mobile payments joint venture with Bank of America, and the subsequent expansion to include JP Morgan Chase. So I'd like to kick off the discussion tonight with an assertion that the market for mobile offers and mobile payments currently looks at the same time like the Wild West, and appropriately enough for San Francisco, the gold rush. We've got VCs who have funded several dozen mobile payments companies, and this year we've got several hundred other ones waiting in the wings. Square raises money at a $1.6 billion valuation from a VC not known for overpaying. You've got a majority of large corporates in the United States who claim to have a mobile payment strategy, but a majority of Kenyans are paying their bills by cell phone today. And on top of that, we still think we're waiting for Apple and Facebook to enter the market in a meaningful way. So I'd ask the panel to start to define the market for mobile payments and mobile offers, and to comment on whether we're really talking about a market for mobile transactions more generally.
I think I'll take a kick at this. And the definition that I will give is, currently I think the definition that is used in the United States is mobile payment is anything that involves payment and mobile phone. So it's roughly split between using mobile phone to pay and using mobile phone to accept payment. As far as sticking the transactions piece into it, I would say that payment, just as a payment in a grocery store consists of several parts usually. So in a grocery store, when you come in, part of the payment can be you running a loyalty card and receiving discounts as a loyal customer. Granted, the store collects your information. Applying certain manufacturer coupons, that also becomes part of the transaction, and finally enacting the actual money transfer between your account and the physical store. Same goes for mobile. So I would say, yeah, mobile payments is the correct term, and it includes the payment, the actual money piece, and anything else that transfers notional value between the consumer and the merchant.
I'd like to kick off with a little story what happened to me last week. And that gives you an idea of what I believe mobile payments, mobile offers, mobile marketing, and m-commerce ultimately could mean to consumers. And unfortunately, it's a story without a happy ending for a merchant. So here's what happened. I have a dog. His name is Diego. It's a golden retriever. Awesome dog. But everybody who has a golden retriever knows they like to eat a lot. And so I left to the office in the morning. My wife asked me, hey, on your way back from work, please grab dog food. Now you have to know, for this story, you have to know I have two options from my way to work to my house. I have two options. One is Petco, the other one is Pet Food Express. One of them I like a lot, but it's not so much on the way for me. I have to take a little detour. The other one is right on the way, but I don't like it so much. So over the day, I keep thinking, dog food tonight, happy wife, happy life, right? So don't screw this one up. So, and I'm sitting in a meeting, and I'm a member of the Petco Pals Rewards. And as such, I'm getting an email throughout the day. In my email, it says 20% off for your favorite dog food, for the food that Diego likes. Jackpot. Jackpot for Petco at that very moment. Petco is, by the way, the one that I like better, but it takes me a detour. So, in that very moment, I said, for 20%, I'll take the detour. So, right there, pretty awesome for them. Throughout the day, I forgot about it. I kept thinking, oh, I'll do Petco tonight, I'll do Petco. I left the office at night in the elevator, I looked at the coupon and I thought, damn it, gotta print it. Have you ever tried to print something from a mobile phone in an elevator? Good one. So at that moment I said, nah, I'll do Pet Food Express. They're on the way, and forget about it. So within that minute, I turned from the marketing jackpot to the marketing failure. So and here is what the problem with m-commerce is all about. So imagine a situation, first of all, where the coupon is made available to you in a way that you don't have to print it. You can actually consume the product on your device. You can use any sort of technology. And I'm not here to talk about technology. There's tons of technology available. Everybody wants to talk about NFC. I don't want to talk about NFC. It's just one technology of many. But use one of those technologies. And secondly, now that's just the marketing piece. Now go to the payment piece of it. What would have happened if the offer would have said, hey, 10% off for grabbing the dog food tonight at Petco, and another 10% off if you pay right here, one-click billing on the device. So what would have happened? I would have probably in the meeting said, all right, sure, hit one click, impulse buy. And I would have paid right on my phone, and now standing there in the elevator is like, oh, do I really want to take this detour? Is that really necessary tonight? But I've already paid, so I'll do it, and I grab the food. So here's what I think true m-commerce experience is like. Look at the consumer experience as a general, and that's exactly what you were referring to. Look at the experience, the life cycle, and then go from there and define where do we need to change, where do we need to offer the consumer something that really helps drive revenue, make lives easy, and so forth. So, and that ties into what you're saying. There's obviously tons of technologies available, accepting payments on the mobile device, making payments with the mobile device, all those definitions are very correct. But now the question is, how do we apply this, and how do we make meaningful products?
Good. So on my we're on the mobile marketing side, right? So and so I guess, you know, everyone agrees that, you know, an integrated experience, a holistic view of the consumer journey is the ideal. It's the nirvana. But maybe we could just talk about things that are happening now within the mobile offer space, which is still a bit clunky, but you can see the path to the future. So so in mobile advertising, you know, the original stuff that came out from Google and AdMob and those guys, it's just repackaging the online world, which is taking a banner, putting it into an application, up it comes. And it's not really a very compelling experience. But now, you know, with the things which are uniquely mobile, right, like having the latitude and longitude of the user, you can actually use that data as it's passed out from the application, and then we can provide a relevant offer for the user. And in fact, the fastest growing part of our business in Americas is ad networks that just really specialize in mobile offers and taking those offers and then presenting it to the user. And getting back to your example, right, it's really providing something that's relevant, right? You've got the lat long, you know something about the user, you know the app that they're in. Right, I'm going to give something that's relevant. So then there's you know, how do you actually, once the offer's there, then actually how do you actually redeem that offer? And that's obviously some things that these guys can talk about in more detail.
I don't know if I just want to go down the line, but I mean, to me, it's, look, I mean, I get back to this idea of frictionless, right? I mean, the reality is, you know, when Square started, it was really a way to provide vendors that aren't part of the traditional POS system a way to do POS, but they realized very quickly that wasn't actually the real win. The real win was the customer experience and how much better you could make it, right? At the end of the day, they realized, oh, we can just send you actually much more relevant material in a receipt, in an e-format. Why would we give you a weird piece of paper that you carry around your wallet somehow? You know, where we can give you much more relevant data that is interesting and important to the user and interesting and important to the vendor. So I think that, you know, at the end of the day, you can't separate. I don't know if you can separate payment from, you know, from offer. I think that they're part and parcel. I do think that, you know, clearly we have things that are already offers that are not considered part of the mobile, you know, not considered part of the mobile payment world, but they still are transacted on a mobile device. So, like, take the, you know, the stuff that Amex did with Facebook early on, right, where they can say, all right, by the way, same thing. You can say, yeah, I want to take advantage of this offer now. American Express knows a lot about you because they obviously have a lot of your purchase history, and as long as you go and use your American Express card in the store, it automatically goes into the cloud and takes, you know, take the discount off for you. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to credit coupon. You don't have to do anything. So in and of itself, that's not a mobile payment solution. It's a digital solution that just happens to be transacted on mobile potentially. I think where there's interest is, you know, for us is, from a design perspective, is, you know, the thing that, you know, mobile can do free, like, you know, free use. So a lot of things that are going on in developing countries in terms of how, you know, how P2P payments are done, you know, kind of as a parasite on, you know, on existing systems that were never meant to exist. You know, this idea of the value of a transaction is personal. Why is there an arbitrary number where if it's $25, I don't have to sign, but if it's over $25, I do have to sign? Well, if I'm making $500,000 versus $20,000, there's a big difference in terms of what that means to me. So, you know, it's, you know, it's the ability to change, you know, how people interact with the payment system in themselves, which is interesting. You know, the fact that, you know, again, Apple kind of pioneered this early on, and, you know, Square obviously has kind of pushed it forward, but, you know, freeing the, you know, payment from the checkout counter. You can now go in aisle as a sales associate, and you can check, you know, you can provide customer service and check somebody out at the same time, as opposed to having them have to go stand in line, right? So, you know, these are the kind of things that I find interesting that are unique to, you know, mobile payments as opposed to just offers. But at the same time, I think that, you know, going back to the original Square example, if you can enable a frictionless experience, then you know, by definition, can now add personalization and better customer experience to the end user, which ultimately is going to benefit everybody.
So I think it's striking that none of the panelists mentioned international, the unbanked, or the not yet banked as in the discussion of the market for mobile services. Does that mean that you think the greatest opportunities lie in the historical e-commerce areas of P2P, P2B, and B2B?
So I can maybe talk a little about MoPay and what we are doing actually, and talk a little bit what the experience from a carrier-based biller standpoint is. So typically, from a U.S. perspective, the opportunity today for an existing mobile payment solution that involves carrier billing is not in the U.S. simply because for the U.S. consumer, we are not solving a problem. So as such, because you guys have a credit card and you can use it to transact online, you may or may not care so much about your credit card information being entered online, and you may or may not find it convenient to enter the 16 digits online, but we are, in a nutshell, not really solving a problem. And that is true for many other mobile payment solutions that are out there today. They are not necessarily solving a problem that the consumer has. But now looking at the international markets, and again, we're currently active in 80 countries. The biggest opportunity is obviously in markets where credit card penetration is low, where people do not have opportunities to pay online, and you actually solve a problem. That is where you see adoption. That is where our service is being used mostly. That doesn't mean that it's not meaningful for US merchants. It's meaningful for all US merchants that want to transact and accept payments from international customers. But from a consumer perspective, our brand is much more known in Europe and in Asia and in South America than it is in North America. And yes, we do help to bank the unbanked. To give you an example, Brazil is a perfect market where we, as a consumer, the credit card penetration is rather low, so there's a likelihood that you do not have a credit card as an online consumer. And one of the payment methods down there is Boleto. Some of you may be familiar with Boleto, but in a nutshell, it's an asynchronous payment method where you get a code from the online merchant, you take that code physically, walk into a bank, pay for that code, and the bank confirms payment to the merchant. So, well, that's all fine, but the problem is banks are closed on Sunday. Now, there's no way really to transact for these guys. They're not necessarily unbanked, but there's no way to transact for these consumers on Sunday. So that's where we come into play. An immediate deduction from your prepaid balance, an immediate place the charge on your cell phone bill, and we'll settle it along with your voice and data charges at the end of the month. That is where we solve a problem, and that's where we are seeing a much quicker adoption than, for instance, in comparison to the US. So yes, the international market is very important for us. Kenya is a great example. Not necessarily are they using carrier-based billing, but it's a great example for how mobile payments are being adopted much quicker by consumers in market where the vendors, in this case it's Vodafone, is actually solving a problem. So yes, international markets, and we're banking the unbanked.
Well, it's an innovation-based idea. I mentioned it briefly, but yeah, I mean, I think that P2P payments internationally and just how people have essentially modded what was not originally meant to be a payment service to transfer funds to different places is just fundamentally interesting, right? I mean, designers love that stuff. So I mean, modding, Connect to do different things that Microsoft didn't intend you to do. Same thing. It's just there's a beauty about what companies like M-Pesa and others have done, internationally, based again on top of the existing structures where they weren't really meant to provide for that solution, but did because people started using it that way. It's just really, really interesting.
Can I bring up heat a little bit on Kolja?
Well, we like heat, so please.
Yeah, so
please go for it.
the heat is this. Part of the problem with carrier-based billing in the United States is it's expensive. In the developing countries, as first of all, the rates I believe are much lower than what they are here, and there are very little alternatives for transactions. But here in the United States, often carrier-based billing is hard to sell to retailers, merchants, because it's just so much more expensive than even a credit card. Do you find it a difficult problem to crack here?
Yes, absolutely. And it's players in the ecosystem tend to think that it's about greedy carriers. So just to bring everybody on the same page, fees for credit card transaction typically for a merchant range between 1% and maybe 4%. And for carrier-based billing, fees, for instance, in the US, are in the tens. So something between, say, 12 and 18% in the US today. So if you are running a business as a merchant that is probably potentially a low-margin business, take Walmart as a perfect example, super low margins, then you just cannot afford to use carrier-based billing because it's just cost prohibitive. And this obviously, it's not us who's taking a 15% share. It's typically the carriers. They are taking that share for the service of allowing consumers to be, for allowing merchants to be a line item on their bill. So yes, you're absolutely correct. US carriers are a little greedy, they're a little careful with introducing the service, but we're just in its infancy right now. So we believe this will change. In other markets, such as Germany is a very good example where carriers charge around 8%. Korea, we're in the 5% range right now, so we're getting close. We're not just there yet, but we're starting to be competitive with a PayPal transaction, with a credit card transaction. But it's a slower process than we thought it would be. But we all have to keep in mind that everything we're discussing here right now, it's all in its infancy. We're just getting started.
That's very true. This is very early stages in the development.
So I mean, just to finish off on the mobile monetization, mobile marketing space, I mean, it's actually there's full coverage around the world. We've got 200 countries covered and principalities. And there's actually about, I don't know, 190 countries, but there's principalities. We've got 80 different ad networks around the world plugged into the system. Now, what does that actually mean? I mean, the consumer experience is free, right? They're not paying for anything, but they're getting offers, right? And those offers are being delivered locally, right, to those consumers. Now, the interesting thing from a US perspective is a lot of these app developers. I mean, these are application developers. Anyone from mom and pop shops to mature companies that maybe have 5, 10 people. Actually, they put their apps out and then they're sold all over the world. So 50% of their users are actually not in America because it's so virtual, right? And then they're saying, well, how do I actually monetize that across the world, right? And that's where you can actually do that with mobile marketing offers through companies like ourselves. Then it's a question of, again, then how do you actually tie it back, right, to actually a transaction? But the point is the mobile marketing part is actually solved from a worldwide perspective. The challenge is going to be actually having something that is a compelling experience for the consumers, right? So, really having, this is, I don't know if this is a segue into another conversation, but something that actually, pushing out marketing messages when you're in the proximity of somewhere, or you're having relevant, like the dog food example, you're having relevant things to when you're traveling back and forward from work, right? You want to have things that are relevant to you and are repetitive. Those are the things that are quite interesting in the mobile marketing area.
I have a question for you. I mean, and you're absolutely right with mobile marketing being mature at this point. But from your perspective, why do you think still so many brands in general, app developers, retailers, brands in general, fail to do mobile marketing right?
Well, it's just, it's a bit like the payments industry. It's a very mature industry, the advertising industry, right? You're still spending more on print than on online, right? So it's difficult to get that transition from TV, print, online to mobile, right? So the established ways of people spending advertising dollars it's got a tremendous amount of inertia. Right? Having said that, there's some innovation that's happening in mobile that's unique to mobile that's really sort of stimulating that sort of change, right?
So you think the technology is pretty mature, but the brands are still not at the end of their learning curve, or would that be a fair?
Oh no, it's early stages. I mean, mobile's still only 2% of the total advertising spend, right?
Mm.
So it's really very early stages there. But the coverage, right, and of how you can actually get to consumers, that's there. But there's a lot of education within the sort of advertising agencies of actually how to get a good returns on your advertising. So the challenges for the things that are actually sticking, interestingly, are virtual goods, right? So, I I do in-app payments, right? So within my app, I'm doing I'll buy something else, through to downloading. I mean, the biggest thing in applications is, oh, I can sell space on my app to actually download another app, and people are willing to spend on that, because then you of course have got, oh, I'm a user that's already using this particular application. This is a given that I'm going to like this sort of application. So that's the thing that's, you know, again, uniquely mobile and is feeding on itself, right? But when, you know, to get the big brands in, to get the big brands to spend really big dollars on branded campaigns, yeah, I mean, it's early. It's early. I mean, Apple, you know, we talked about Apple and Apple struggled, right? Ads are not a success, right? These sort of, you know, big, you know, you've got $1 million to spend on mobile. It hasn't succeeded. But the things that are succeeding are these performance-based campaigns, like get me a download, get me a lead, get me something that's, you know, really very, very highly targetable.
Yeah, I'd like to add something to this. So, speaking to what Peter already outlined, when you're trying to get a large consumer packaged good brand, for example, to say distribute a mobile coupon, you're meeting with certain challenges. The challenges are they are measuring this mobile distribution and redemption against what they already know, which is printed coupons. Printed coupons are somewhat targeted, at least by zip codes. They are somewhat tracked because they know the responses in particular geographic areas, they can do some statistical analysis, etc., etc. The mobile coupons currently are almost never producing solid redemption data, so they're not really tracked. They're sprayed. Peter, correct me if I'm wrong, but the CPG brand doesn't know where its mobile coupon is ending up. So it can be sending a mobile coupon and it doesn't know whether it ended up in Kansas or in California, and especially, you know, when it got redeemed. So that's a problem. Even given that problem, the mobile coupons are extremely efficient. If you're thinking of an analogy, a printed coupon maybe gets, you know, if an ad flyer contains maybe 300 printed coupons, 1 or 2 of them are redeemed. So that's a redemption rate of about 1%. If a mobile coupon is distributed in a redeemable fashion, 1 out of 5 gets redeemed. So that's very efficient. If we just can crack the redemption problem, the tracking, and get that data to CPGs, I think the picture will change dramatically overnight.
There's a dark side to the redemption point, though, and that is the reason why it works is there's an immense amount of data available about consumers, who they are, where they go. So far, people claim in surveys that they are very interested in protecting their privacy. They don't want their data to go to vendors. But at the same time, and I'm probably the worst offender, I have done nothing to change the privacy settings on my LinkedIn account or my Facebook page. So
I have the data here. Right? I've been doing some studying about you,
So I'd ask the panel to pull out their crystal balls and make some predictions about what we're going to see on the privacy front. Are we going to have changes that make it more restrictive for providers of online offers to provide targeted ads that have a high redemption value?
Oh, I think you need a Chinese wall just in like in an investment bank between the people who know the consumers and the people who know the offers. And there are bound to be laws about that. There already are some trickling down from the physical world. Yeah. But
I think we generally think you can do a lot with the consumer's consent, and the consumer doesn't read the terms and conditions that they're clicking through when they're downloading the app to the website.
well, think about this. Suppose that you have a wall between the consumer data and the advertiser, right? And the consumer is in control of his data. But there is a robot here. it doesn't have a brain. It just delivers the offers that are sent through this wall to the consumers that fit certain criteria. That doesn't break any consumer privacy. That is directly beneficial to consumer because it delivers targeted offers, and it's directly beneficial to the brand because you get higher success rates. So there is no problem with technology. It's all in the perception.
Not from technology, no. So I mean, you're talking about a trusted intermediary that's going to sort of store this data. But there's an interesting thing about mobile marketing. They're actually not interested in the individual. They're interested in the audience, right? And they're interested in, the males near Macy's at a particular time. They're not interested in the name of the individual at Macy's at a particular time. Right?
But it still freaks you out, right? That's the problem. The problem is that you're like, why do they know that I'm here? That make people they feel creepy about it, right?
Right. So therefore, there needs to be a trusted intermediary that says, okay, can I switch these preferences off or not? All right. Can I turn my cookies off? I mean, in reality, people don't turn their cookies off. They see the ads online, right? People drop a cookie down and say, okay, now this guy's gone to a travel site. He's going to be interested in Fiji, and then they go to another site, and Fiji pops up, right? So, and that user is, wait a minute, I actually am interested in Fiji. So it's a question of whether you see that as value.
That's
right?
exactly what it is. I mean, we talked about this before, right? But to me, it's like, if you ask people in a vacuum whether or not they have privacy concerns without being tracked, they will say yes. The question is, can you provide them value? Because if there is buying. Like, look at Starbucks and how they've implemented their mobile payment solution in the store, extremely successful, right? People, if ultimately you are good at delivering value to people, and they perceive that that they're getting value, they don't really question it. It's only when we were talking about examples of things you do for work where you're doing research and then suddenly it thinks you're interested in X, Y, or Z, and you're not, and it just makes you angry because you realize that they're just targeting, retargeting you and trying and taking your information and using it. So I mean, I think that it's a conundrum, right? Because I mean, again, when you have an opt-in situation and when you're adding value, in general, people won't question it. People don't question Facebook because they figure that they're getting value from Facebook, if they are not. But when when it's seen as something that is stalking, then because it's not adding value, that's when people get concerned about privacy issues.
I think so. In all discussions that we're involved in, it's like how do we bring additional value to the consumer with a mobile payment solution? Because we know that there's not a problem that we are solving per se. We are not fixing a systemic issue. You can pay with your credit card, be it online or at the point of sale. Yes, we believe that mobile payments have the potential to be more secure, more convenient, but that is not enough of a value for a consumer, typically. So the question becomes, for all the players in the ecosystem, how do we add additional value to our technology and our solutions? And the answer to that question always is about data. Because then you say, okay, our payment solution adds value because there's a coupon involved, there's advertising involved, and there's payments and advertising is all of a sudden combined. And we know so much about the consumer. It's also the question, how do we add security to a mobile payment solution? It's very simple. I track where you are. I know exactly that you are through, I locate you, I know that you are at the point of sale in Walmart. So this is going to be an incredible secure transaction from a merchant perspective, also from a consumer perspective. But it is about data, because I need to know where you are, otherwise I can't make it that secure as I want it. So, and then the question becomes, who owns that data? And that is an incredibly interesting discussion to have that with representatives from carriers, banks, card issuers, merchants.
And lawyers love that.
Yes, absolutely. So who owns the data? And then you have Google joining the conversation, and they will tell you, well, the consumer is the only person who owns the data. And everybody's like, wow, that's cool. That makes a lot of sense. But interesting that it actually comes from Google, that statement. A company that has a business model that is around owning consumer data.
Have you asked them to get your data back from them?
So, privacy is one of the things. Privacy and security, which is a little related, are the two things in the payments world when it comes to mobile payments that are the two big issues that we need to solve in order to drive adoption. And not necessarily, this is not only involving the key players, we also need regulation for that. Because right now, the mobile payment space is basically not regulated in any market. In a nutshell, it's not regulated. And that brings uncertainty for all the players. And that's dangerous because everybody is probably more careful than they should be, or they step over the line. So that's why we're trying to form industry groups and associations to help creating industry standards right now around mobile payments, around security questions, around privacy questions. And still, that doesn't answer the question how much the consumer is willing to give us when it comes to his personal data and information. But if we set standards that are widely accepted, we believe it will drive adoption.
So we just, some of the buzz coming out of CTIA was that the iPhone 5 is going to have an NFC chip in it. The NFC has been a promise that's been made for a long time now. I'd be curious about what the panel thinks about NFC's role in the development of the mobile payments market. Is it required, or as PayPal would say, we don't need it?
3 years ago, I had a partner at NEA tell me NFC is DOA. That's probably not true, but in reality, NFC is just one more way to communicate. I frankly, I don't understand what the possibility. You can communicate via Bluetooth, you can communicate via Wi-Fi, you can communicate via any other methods. The only thing that NFC does is it ensures that you're physically in contact with the transceiver. So, but as the GPS precision gets higher, that problem goes away.
My stand on the NFC discussion is I don't believe that technology alone will drive adoption, will make life easier. It's only what you make out of this and what the solutions are that will make good use of NFC. And I don't know why everybody is waiting for NFC. I personally think, similar to your opinion, that it's just a technology and there is tons of other technology available. But it seems that Google, as well as Apple, seem to be very focused on NFC right now, and I can only hope that they will do the right things with it. This phone has an NFC chip. I've never used it. So just having the iPhone with an NFC chip is not going to change anything. We need to have the right applications on it.
I think NFC. It initially came about as mobile payments, right? But mobile marketing is quite exciting around NFC, right? You can actually do some quite cool things like automatically checking in. You can, when you're in proximity to certain things within a retail store, you can actually get data pushed to you, or data is, with your permission, data can be pushed out to say, I'm interested in this, and get more information. But yeah, of course you could do it with QR codes. But let's face it, who's taking out a camera and going and then pressing, pressing the camera thing and then taking the photo? It's going off, and it's a more convenient way to do something that's already there, right? So I think actually, getting back to the user experience, I think there'd be some interesting, bumping your contacts. There are going to be some interesting use cases around what people will be doing with NFC, just around that proximity thing. And it's just a convenient technology to do that. I mean, it could be done in a variety of other ways, but I think that's where NFC is going to kick off. Myself.
Also, what's the use of NFC if you can't use it? When this came out, I went out and bought a phone specifically, being in mobile space, for the point for actually downloading Google Wallet and trying to use it. And it turns out Google Wallet supports one of the credit cards. It only supports one. It's for Citi. How much? Well, yeah, at that time it was only supporting one. And it turned out it was supporting a Citi card. And lucky me, I have a Citi card in my wallet, so I thought, well, gee, I go buy this stuff, I download Google Wallet, so I go use it. Tough luck. My specific Citi card doesn't work with Google Wallet. Go figure.
Well, it's 8 o'clock, which means it's time to transition to question and answer. So if we have questions from the audience, I think the panel will be glad to take. Please.
Yeah, and I heard rumors that Facebook's valuation has been muted this week because it doesn't have an adequate mobile strategy. And maybe there's some other vendors that are in the same box as Facebook that way.
On Instagram, what other strategy do you need?
They've got 11 more employees. So, no, I mean, actually, that was, I think, the interesting thing about the Instagram purchase was it just proves they've been playing lip service to mobile, saying, yeah, mobile is driving our strategy, but actually now they've actually put money down to say it is driving our strategy. So they need to get resources in, some clever people in. That's fine. So and Google's the same. You talk to the right people at Google, and it's driving their strategy now. I mean, it's in this sort of mobile versus PC versus TV. I mean, that's going away, right? I mean, everyone remember the converged devices sort of talk of the sort of the noughties, right? But now it's actually happening, right? There is a converged experience that's going on. So I actually Facebook is. Mobile's important to them. They haven't figured out the marketing part of, there isn't much advertising going on in Facebook for mobile, but it's scary what they could do.
So just about Facebook, two things. One is when you look at the Facebook experience, mobile versus web, it's very different today, right? There's no ads on the mobile version. There's no apps, as in gaming and all the third-party apps that you could theoretically make use of on the web version. And there's no payments. The concept of Facebook credits doesn't exist on the mobile device. So I don't know anything about the ad world, but I can tell you today there was an announcement that Facebook is just now creating a mobile app environment. We don't know exactly what that means, but it's potentially huge. Because that means they're bringing their web app environment, which is hugely driven by Zynga, as we all know, to the mobile world. So that is potentially a game changer right there. The second game changer, a smaller company called Bango has announced about 3 months ago, because they are public, they have to announce it. They announced a partnership with Facebook, and what Bango does is accepting on-device payments, and they're very specialized in that field, accepting on-device payments to carrier billing. So that makes me think that within the next 6 to 8 months, they will also incorporate payments in their mobile app. So 3 things: ad, I can't speak about that. App was an announcement just today, and payments. I think we're safe to assume that they're going to change their current strategy of non-monetizing their mobile community to changing that to monetizing them.
There have been a couple of references to Kenya as an example of the way things can happen in mobile payments. I would suggest Kenya has very little relevance to the US market, and you've got a population with almost, very few people at bank, high mobile phone penetration, minimal card issuance and acceptance. US market, as Kolja said, I mean, the existing system works pretty well. Mobile payments, and specifically proximity payments, has been massively hyped by players across the ecosystem. Acceptance is weak. The number of people that can spend, very, very weak, so there's a chicken and egg issue. And then, consumers and merchants are creatures of habit in terms of payments. So unless you give both parties something really compelling to cause them to change behavior, there's no reason for them to change behavior. Is there a plausible path to getting critical mass in proximity mobile payments in the US market or any other mature, developed payments market? If so, what is that?
So I think we both would want to take that. So I can start. So I think there's two ways to look at it. One is the merchant. For a merchant, there's just, in a nutshell, there are just two things that are important for merchants. It's cost of the transaction, and so it's basically before the transaction, okay, what is my cost going to be? And after the transaction, what's happened with the money that I just collected? Am I going to keep it, or is there going to be a rollback of the transaction of some sort? So those are two issues that we need to solve. Right now, carrier-based billing is not in the position to solve the cost issue, for instance. We talked about that. And none of the mobile payment solution is in the position of solving that, because all the mobile payment solutions that are out there are about additional technology that has to be deployed at the point of sale, that there's cost right there for the merchant, and Walmart is not going to deploy anything unless it saves them money. So that's one issue. So
And it's cost-based, it's a non-starter, right? Cost-based retail payment systems, almost never succeed. New challengers that are cost-based fail.
So yeah, so if you, but in general, if you want to ask, okay, what will drive adoption in the merchant space? Cost. Second thing is how to make the transaction more secure, avoid rollback of transaction, and so forth. So those are the two issues that, from a merchant perspective, we hear the most needs to be resolved. So, but from a consumer perspective, it's a little easy. It's about convenience, it's about value add. And that's where the discussion circles back in, okay, what about the data that we have available? How can we make this transaction more secure, more convenient? How can we add, how can we make offers on the device, in the store, and then include a one-click payment right there? So those are the things from a consumer perspective that are, I think, more immediate to be about to be resolved than the merchant issues.
Yeah, I think in addition to what Kolja already mentioned, there is one more thing that any merchant really wants. They want to increase the basket size.
Yeah.
And that makes the two-pronged problem of consumers and merchants into a three-pronged problem of what we call a three-legged stool of consumers, merchants, and brands. So I think the first company that figures out how to mitigate the three-legged stool problem and make it into something that's tangible and bring the value to all three parties in this equation will ultimately win the game. Just thinking of it as a merchant and consumer and payment doesn't work, because we're hitting the cost issue. Credit card is damn convenient, and beating the current cost structure on the mobile payment system is very hard.
And credit card is also secure enough, not secure.
Actually, if you think about it, mobile transactions are incredibly more secure than credit cards.
I'm not insisting they're not, but I would challenge anyone on the panel to cite a single example of a broad-based retail payment system predicated on being more secure that has succeeded based on that. Cite me one. Yeah.
Oh, we
can name
know
a
of
couple
many
that have
failures.
failed.
Hey,
Yeah.
right, a lot of, the decades that were
Yeah, this is true, and security and cost are intertwined, right? The more secure, the less cost.
My understanding is, I mean, the New York Times, I'm sure a lot of other publications published this week, they had an article about how, you know, essentially Verifone, the credit card companies the banks are essentially forcing retailers to upgrade their swiping systems because for smart guy, and they're essentially as part of that, they're going to just deploy NFC as part of that.
Yep.
But again, I mean, I think so. It goes back to cost, right? I mean, at the end of the day, because they're making retailers liable for the fraud, issues, it's driving their decision to upgrade, which otherwise they wouldn't do because it's cost.
But EMV is very hard to justify on its own based on cost. I mean, the
Sure.
third-party fraud losses are, it's 8 basis point third-party fraud losses for an issuer, and it's a de minimis number. And it's an issue, but they're doing it for regulatory reasons. They're doing it because lots of other countries have done it. They're not paying the cost. I mean,
But I mean, just in and of itself, that'll change things to some degree. It's a question of ultimately, again, does that create a more frictionless environment? Because then you have the ability to implement these things easier. Because right now, I mean, the POS issue is a non-starter, right? I mean, if you don't have the ability to transact through mobile payment, then it's not going to make a difference.
and merchants never upgrade point-of-sale terminals unless they're forced to.
Exactly.
I think we have a question way in the back.
Yeah, thanks. So I hear that brick and mortar retail is getting its business eaten up by e-commerce, right? I mean, Best Buy or the little shop in the mall. Brick and mortar is having a hard time. And I'm wondering if any of you believe that mobile can save brick and mortar retail, and if yes, how? I think I'm not investing in Best Buy, I guess. But
Right, but I think that's sort of the basis of this panel, right? Is actually, mobile offers are driving foot traffic to retail outlets.
yeah, but you see that work. You see, I mean, your companies, Shopkick, other companies. Do you see any traction behind that? Do you see any sign that mobile is starting to do something for brick and mortar retail, or is it still in the far future, or have some of you?
I don't think it's not like newspapers, right? I mean, it's like brick and mortar is still like $4 trillion in transactions, whereas e-commerce is a much smaller number than that. And in a lot of ways, there's been studies that say that multi-channel offerings actually help to drive foot traffic to some degree as well. And I think the big thing that's happening within retail overall, separate from mobile payments, is that retailers have to start looking at commerce as not e-commerce and brick and mortar, but as commerce, right? At the end of the day, it's about retail, and it's about looking across a multi-channel solution rather than saying it's about this or that, right? And we're just at the tip of the iceberg right now in terms of how most mainstream retailers are using digital and physical spaces and vice versa. Mobile is a big part of that, so you can now reach people in aisle. That's a big deal, right?
But the issue that's right now mobile is helping pure e-commerce retailers like Amazon get the business, because you have a nice little app, whether it's Red Laser, another one actually, one written by Amazon, the name of which I can't remember, allow you to go to the store, scan the product, and see what the cheapest online offer is for that product, and walk out of the store. So far what I'm seeing is mobile is really not helping brick and mortar retail, and that's why I'm asking.
I personally would actually agree with you on that. It has the potential to help, but I don't right now, other than Shopkick, I don't see any actual deployment out there that would help, particularly Best Buy, because Best Buy is probably the best example for the problem you're describing.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody is going to the Best Buy, looking at all the TVs, like, hey, I like this best, because that has a really, really cool picture and the sound is awesome. So in the store, I'm still there. I'm going to Amazon and say, how much is this on Amazon again? Oh, it's cheap on Amazon. One click buy, don't, and being delivered, and I don't even have to carry it to my car.
That's not Best Buy.
So I think I think Best Buy is the number one example for the problem you're describing. Another one is the travel industry, right? Who uses a travel agent around the corner anymore when Expedia is so much more convenient? So I don't believe today, just confirming what you're saying, that any of the solutions that we have actually help brick and mortar to drive traffic to the stores, except for Shopkick again.
I think,
But-
I mean, Groupon's been successful at that too. I mean,
And a nice margin.
I mean, but it's definitely
I
driven
think
foot
the
traffic. I mean,
retailers
it's unclear over the long term whether that's gonna make any difference. But I think that, you know, I mean, there's, I think there's potential things out there. I mean, being able to, again, offer, people, the reverse of the red laser problem is, being able to offer people incentives at, in aisle or at, at a location to go to somewhere, right? So I think there is some potential that, mobile in particular, unlike the web, purely on a PC, can help some of that. I also think that there, can be advantages on the flip side, of the business-to-business side, we don't really talk a lot about efficiencies in, inventory, again, efficiencies in how associates are used within store. So I do think there's things that can be done to aid in the, aid in the brick and mortar story. I think ultimately, again, it comes down to, there's certain efficiencies that exist online. There's a certain reason why people shop online versus in store. They're never gonna change, right? I mean, and there are certain things that online is just gonna prove over time to be better for, and certain things that ultimately will never impact your ability to go into a store. I mean, you can't have the same experiential feeling going into an e-commerce site that you can going into a store. So, you can't have the same, so I mean, there are certain reasons why people, I mean, if you're just going for efficiency, there's no way the brick and mortar at the end of the day is ever gonna win that battle, but I do think that there are ways that mobile will improve that experience, and I also think that there's certain things that pure digital will never solve for on the that brick and mortar can always bring to the table. If that makes sense. It's like watching a movie in the theater versus watching it on TV. It's just a different experience.
It's not a good omen for
I know. Well, it's still big business. It's just not, growing. Yeah.
Also in the back?
Yeah, I don't know that I agree with the premise that the brick and mortar merchant is not being helped. I think there's a lot of things that are happening that are helping the brick and mortar merchant, and that is the implementation of EMV and NFC by 2015. By 2015, Visa and MasterCard are going to shift the liability to the merchant, and so a lot of the merchants have a big incentive to upgrade the infrastructure. Once that infrastructure is in place, then you would have the ability to read the NFC transaction, and it's up to the merchant really to develop all kinds of interesting applications. I can think, for example, of the big merchants like Safeway or somebody like that, getting all kinds of very interesting coupon information from your mobile phone. So I think the opportunity is there, and I think that the card associations are making the right moves to implement the infrastructure, which is absolutely crucial for NFC and for mobile payments to help the merchants, the brick and mortar merchants.
Why do you need to wait for NFT though? You already have sufficient size.
And I agree, a lot of the terminals since, I don't know, 3 years ago, 5, 6 years ago, 90% of them have already NFC capability, but a lot of them are still legacy products, so that they need to be upgraded anyway by 2015. So the incentive is going to be there for the merchants, for the brick and mortar merchants. So that's going to help them a lot.
I would partially agree with you on that. Maybe technology provides a segue and makes it a little easier, but that does not necessarily mean that you will immediately see deployments of successfully, because the question really is, can this technology increase the basket size, drive more traffic to the stores, drive it away from e-commerce to the brick and mortar stores? And I see the potential of the technology, but as of today, I don't see deployments around that would actually help brick and mortar stores with that regard. I'm just missing examples. That's the problem.
I don't know a specific example, but I can tell you that one of the issues that you didn't bring up is the speed of transaction at the merchant location at the point of sale. That is also a very crucial thing. And to the extent that the transaction speed is slow because of mobile payments, it creates a big bottleneck at the point of sale. And so one of the things that NFC allows you to do is a very quick transaction. It's actually a lot faster to do a transaction on NFC than to do a debit card or credit card transaction. So,
But from a consumer perspective,
I would argue Apple's might prove that in the Apple retail stores, because they're pretty good at taking your credit card from anybody with a blue shirt in the Apple store. They're very quick, and that transaction never takes more than a couple of seconds.
Well, Magstripe without signature is, I mean, other than maybe transit, is not measurably slower in the contactless thing.
Yeah, but
The networks proved that was a false one with the contactless card programs. I mean, it's not, speed at the point of sale without signature is not,
speed at the
is
point
not
of
an
sale
issue.
without signature only applies to transactions for certain limits, $20, $30.
Whether it's contactless or Magstripe doesn't affect the rule about what's the authentication, right? I mean, it's not, the speed issue, speed is not gonna drive this.
Oh, I disagree with you. I think merchants are very concerned about speed.
They are.
Well, I think they
They
are,
are
but aren't they,
concerned.
it's because the bottleneck becomes there's different payment methodologies that each consumer's bringing in every time they show up at a POS. And I don't mean just different credit cards. Right, that's the main reason you see bottlenecks at retail, POS is somebody's paying cash, somebody's using a credit card, somebody's using a debit, they're not the same methodology. And you still have people sitting in a POS system, the cash register.
Merchants are indeed, especially high volume merchants like Safeways and Kroger's, they are indeed very concerned about the transaction speeds. But ultimately, tapping your NFC against the terminal is not any faster than swiping the card. Swiping the card is that good experience that's very hard to beat.
I have a question for Peter. What do you think would would trigger this increase of investment in advertising? Because the rate is so low now, like you said, is it 2 or 3%? What do you think will make it fall?
Well, I mean, it's growing organically at 100% a year, so it's already growing very, very quickly compared with the other ones. Like, it's eating into the other ones. It's growing much, much quicker than online, for example. But I think we mentioned it before. Is the reason people put money into advertising? Well, there's two things. It's either for brand or it's for some kind of performance, right? And even brand has got performance associated with it. And with that performance, it's not clear on mobile whether they're actually getting that, right? Apart from some clear ones, which are app developers, clicking through, some are now clicking through, and there are some purchasing and some offers going on, some lead generation. So I think the answer is it's reliable tracking.
It's also figuring out what the right formats are to some degree. So I mean, part of the problem that happened when this happened online too, right? It's like it just took a while for people to settle on, all right, well, it's about banners and search as an example, or it's about video ads inserted in pre-roll, right? It just nobody exactly knows what the right unit is on mobile yet. There's early stages in terms of what's happening now, but that's not necessarily knowing if that's going to be what ends up working the best way. So I think it's also, brands are reluctant to commit, and there's still a lot of innovation going on in terms of what that can be, whether that's what iAd is doing, or what Google's doing with AdMob, or what MoPay is doing. I mean, I think there's still work to be done in terms of what is actually an effective ad on the mobile platform vis-a-vis the web or TV or anything else.
and there's one point in addition. I'm not really sure if this screen is pretty small.
Yes.
So I'm not really sure if plastering the screen with ads would necessarily drive adoption to the services.
Yeah.
So, and that is what Facebook was concerned about, right? Drive adoption first, and not kill the industry by putting a 240 by 320 banner ad, which is basically half my screen. So I'm not saying that I absolutely disagree with brands today that spend 98% of their budget on traditional media and only 2% on mobile. I completely think that's a horrible decision. But on the other hand, as a player in the industry, I'm also very concerned about what's going to happen with the consumer. And I don't necessarily think that ads make the experience better.
So I think it's an interesting point. The actual innovation as far as the experience is concerned, and custom mobile marketing experiences on devices, that's actually happening in the games industry more than the other segments. I mean, the games guys have figured out, oh, okay, within my experience, I've created this seamless way of, oh, I want to get to the next level, I have to pay something. Or if you like this, you'll like this. My friend has got this other app, and I'll refer that through. And they've got these custom ad units that they're creating that work within their experience. So actually, a lot of that innovation, I think, will you'll see actually spilling over into other app areas. Whether it's more traditional news and other application areas.
Well, they're seeing already putting advertising in the games, like indirectly, like you're playing, probably if you're a guy playing a game in the game, probably you see an HP commercial on that screen.
Right.
I mean, this kind of advertising, which is not just a little banner, it's in the game. So people
draw something is a classic example of getting advertising by being in Facebook, and you tell your friend that I'm doing draw something, and it sends an invite to you on your mobile to download the app, right? And then you're playing with your friend, right? But it's totally in a social context without even spending any dollars, right? So that's why OMG Pop was bought for so much. It was, those are sort of clever innovations that are happening, within mobile marketing in that sort of entertainment category. So I think, to the point here, it's nascent, early stages here with the mobile marketing. There's so much other, there's some interesting stuff going on. There's some interesting technologies going on. 5 years time, we'll have a very, very different conversation.
2008. Brands were spending 20% of their advertising on online, right? So, now we're not even questioning about what people are spending on online. Now we're questioning about what people are spending on mobile, right? So I mean, it'll change relatively quickly. But I mean, the point is, it is this balance. But for tablets, it's a different story. But for this, it's a pretty small screen, right? So a small banner, nobody knows whether or not ultimately that's the right way to do something. But to your point, also covering the whole screen is also a problem from a user experience perspective. So that's the issue. I mean, the 30-second spot worked really well for 50 years because it was uninterruptible, and it was full sound and video, right? It was great, and people knew it delivered to some degree, right? Yeah. So
I think the full screen ad might be back again. No, I mean seriously, these games guys now they have interstitials that come up, right? And it's with their permission, with the permission of the user, and say, here's an offer for you. If you accept this offer, watch this video, you can get to the next stage. And the game's developer then gets the money, right? Yeah. So and the user's getting it for free, so it's it's a valuable proposition. So those I'm just saying that we're still, it's experimental stage, but what I'm sure is that it won't be let's repackage banners from online and put them on a mobile, because clearly that doesn't make sense.
Well, on that note, I'd like to thank Caroline and Florian for organizing the panel for a thrilling discussion. You all for your attention, and look forward to continuing the conversation over drinks.
Dude, I'm a creative. I don't know what you're